Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, Season 2, Episode 27. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And we've got producer Alex Patakis with us on the dials. How's it going, Alex?
All things considered, I'm okay. How are you guys?
Good. And returning for this episode to guest with us is Teddy Ely in Boca Raton, Florida. Teddy, I was joking. It seems like you're always on after really bad games.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you guys only message me after them. So what can I say?
I think it's because you have still a positive attitude even after the bad one. So gotta keep us grounded. Well, Alex, go ahead and throw an E on this episode because that was a fucking shit show. So yeah, so much for our easier games in March. Kicked off with a nice 2-0 butt whooping against Crystal Palace. But that wasn't the whole story. Afterwards, Bruno was in full form, and he was taking no prisoners.
Kids also is a good example of the young kids, the young players. They want everything happen at that time. And when you are out and your opponent or your teammate are playing, you are not training at the intensity you need to training. You not prepare yourselves, and after when you have a chance, this kind of things happen. This is general in football. So these kids today, especially I have too many kids in my team that sometimes they don't work the way they should work. They're not prepared the way they should prepare, and after when they come inside, this kind of things happen because when they are in training, they are thinking a lot. Oh, I'm not playing. Oh, I'm not playing. They are not putting. And I said to them in the first day when I start to work with them, we are here. You need to continue to work. You need to continue to put the first target is work and improve. And after when they have the chances, these kind of things happen because they go to the limit. They go to the limit. They are not ready. They are not prepared. They have injuries can happen, but this one happened because it's not prepared. Because sometimes kids don't work in the same intensity, and this warning is not only just for kids, it's for more kids that we have in our team, and they need to understand I don't waste time with the guys who don't work hard every day to improve, because I can see guys with 35 years old when they don't play, like João didn't play yesterday, and they go for training on the floor trying to win balls in the air to try to, hey, look at me, I'm here. I'm not tolerate any more thing that kids or players, I don't care if they are in the training and thinking too much if they are playing or not.
Producer Alex, you put a poll on Twitter asking whether he was right to publicly call out Hoever and the other members of the squad, the other youngsters. What are the results and some of the responses that came back?
Sure. So the poll, as it stands right now, we've got 73% of responses saying that yes, Lage was right to send a message that way. 26% saying no, that it's counterproductive. And a couple of responses on this one as well, guys, including Tom Frank, who tweeted, "You can send that message in private, but don't play them in public."
Well, I'm glad 73% of our listeners are correct, so that's good. That means we got a good audience. Paul, I'll let you start it out, and then Teddy, and then I'll get to my thoughts on it.
Well, as it stands, I'm in favour of him coming out and what he said. And I think it's in context when you hear the whole thing immediately, when you just saw the takes from the journalists start to tweet it out, you really thought that it was something really crazy off the hook. I think when you hear it in its full context, it elaborates on it somewhat. And I feel a little for Bruno in these cases, because it can't be easy him trying to get across his point in a second language. If it was another manager, maybe in perfect English, maybe that comes across a little differently. So I'll always give a little benefit of the doubt in situations like that. But what really stood out for me was that Bruno's purported to have such a reputation in nurturing young talent and development. So for him to come out and even touch upon this, I thought was very telling. And the extension of that was that, particularly with mentioning Hoever, it's not like it's his players either. So we've got him, possibly Silva if there's others involved, maybe out Nuri, those types of category in terms of age players that he may be referencing. All those came before him, so he's not really had any say over in terms of having that talent and being of a profile that he wants to have and ultimately nurture. So maybe that factors into it somewhat. And I think it's telling in that he's not been short to give praise when it's been due. Like, he's often mentioned Luke Kundle and called him out specifically on aspects, and even to the extent of him being willing to wait and bide his time, where the opposite seems to be the case in terms of Hoover, that he wants more game time. That's an issue. Also, there's question marks around his fitness. So as it stands, I think he's quite right. And just in the particular case that he was mentioning, what an absolute kick in the nuts when you're effectively forced down that route of having to start Hoover, even if you didn't want him to start because you've only got a 50-60% fit Johnny on the bench, to be forced into that position after only 20 minutes. So I could really see the frustration building, because as you go into the game, effectively that was one of his hands that he had to play, because it immediately took out a substitute out from being used in any other way. That was an enforced substitution that, if it boils down to it, if it was down to his lack of fitness, lack of professionalism, whatever it was, it's something that adversely affected the team. So when you add all that up, I'm still in favour of what the coach came out and said.
How about you, Teddy? Agree, disagree?
Might disagree with what he said. I will say, after the West Ham performance, which I think we all thought was pretty poor again, it's kind of, backing his players, saying, it happens. He thought we had a good performance when, we all watched that game, and it was pretty similar to this Crystal Palace game, except the defense was a little more open, really not creating anything attacking wise. But then, yeah, I think obviously he's pretty frustrated. I think Paul makes a good point that he's speaking in English as second language, which he's improved, but it's not quite that good. We saw in the his first interviews with the club in August, compared to Portuguese, and maybe not everything got out the way he wanted to. And if you read the full quotes, it doesn't sound as bad, but unless there was some, unless unless he's talked about this to Ki-Jana before, and it's been a recurring theme over a few months, which it seems like it has. But again, we don't really know. I feel like if that wasn't the case, it's a pretty poor move just to call out one of your kids for the future. He's only 20 years old, again, living in a different country. Like, I mean, it's definitely tough coming over, and to say he hasn't been training hard. Again, we're not there every day. We can't see it, so maybe it's a kick he needs. But just from my point of view, I think that was pretty tough calling him out like that, because he really lambasted him. And I mean, maybe he did pull his hamstring because he didn't work out enough, but he has played 90 minutes before, and I'm not quite sure him training hard's the reason, but who knows.
Yeah, I think he has addressed this in private. That's why when people were like, well, you got to keep that behind. I think he has. I think he's made this statement over and over. And another reason I think so, and I think why he went just full nuclear, was, you mentioned it, Teddy, after the West Ham game, he was still kind of praising the team, like, hey, they essentially tried really hard. They did what I asked them, just got to keep up performances. And then when he came out this week after the game, he said flat out he was angry after the West Ham performance. And then today, for the Crystal Palace game, he was disappointed. So that says to me, he's a manager who wants to back his players publicly. Privately, he's going to, give him a kick in the butt. And I think he did that the last two games. And then Crystal Palace, they did it again. So he's like, well, shit. I'm going to try a different strategy then. I'm going to say that I was extremely disappointed. They didn't play. I'm going to say I was ticked after the last one, and I just think Hoover's probably the one that ticked him off a lot. So Alex Dickin over at Birmingham Mail had a couple interesting things about the situation. He said that Hoover accepted being a backup last season, but not this season. Thought he and Semedo would start this season on the same level. And then said he was frustrated after being dropped twice, which Bruno even mentioned, like, he had a good game earlier in the year, and then they dropped him for Semedo. But it was very clear to me that he's ticked at the whole team, but especially the young kids. And Hoover was the one. Look, I get he's 20. He's also a professional football player getting paid, tens of $1,000s a week. You guys, you know what? If you're not acting like a professional, call him out.
Yeah, I will say, also talked about Joao Moutinho and how he's, always trains hard at 35, and it's definitely one of the reasons why he's still around at his age.
Yeah.
And always talks about how Dendonker's a model pro. So I mean, these players are definitely around the team. So yeah, I mean, I do wonder who else do you think he was calling out with the young players?
Trincao.
Yeah. I was a little worried that he might be bringing Out-Noor into it if he's missed these past 2 games, and whether that was fitness related. But I picked up on a couple of things today that may be an illness or after effects of an illness. So hopefully he doesn't fall under that bracket. But doesn't this come back to some reports earlier on in the season when I think Silva was mentioned, Trincao and Hoover not warming up properly or not listening to instructions on the sideline to do so? Can't remember exactly what game it was related to in the particular context, but if you have got that element within the squad, then it's not being addressed or improved on since that point, then the guy's running out of avenues to try and get his point across, I think.
It definitely wasn't an 8 after I saw it, because I thought the same thing as you, Paul. And then when he came out that, he was sick. And so that's why. Another thing that kind of frustrated me was people like, well, Hoover was so bad, why did you start him? Well, I mean,
there's no one else.
There's no one else. I feel bad for John. Based on what you've seen so far, Teddy, do you think it's just a lack of, he just needs the minutes, or do you think Johnny can be the same player he was before these 2 injuries?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely still needs the minutes just to recover. I mean, I think that was part of the reason, I don't know why, but it could be part of the reason why he tore the ACL the second time. If you guys remember, I think he got hoisted into action a little too early almost and played too much and kind of did it again. So I think we should definitely still keep it careful with him. I wouldn't start him this next game. I don't know about you guys, but I think that could be real cause for concern.
I think what's particularly telling about Johnny is that he's come in and he's had to play right back. And it's not a position, even though he's right-footed, it's not a position that he immediately takes to, especially given this formation, because he's not the profile of player that takes an opponent on the outside to cross it in on his right foot and whip it in that way. He's always enjoyed his success coming down the left and being able to cut in on his right. So that's an element of his game taken straight out. So if you haven't got that, if you still got a bunch of cobwebs, he's probably 2 or 3 players different playing in front of him that he saw with them when he was playing previously. So there's all that dynamic to get used to as well. So I think there's a whole host of contributing factors impacting on Johnny at the moment, and unfortunately there's not a fat lot he can do about it.
So what is the solution then? Is it put Johnny in there, hope he can play 90 minutes, give Hoover another chance, which I don't think is going to happen, or what, move Marcel to right back, move Trincao to right back? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I mean, I saw your face, Paul, on Marcel on the right side, because Semedo's out 4 to 8 weeks. So this is a problem that is not going to go away now for quite some time. And even if he comes back after 8 weeks, how effective is he going to be? What would you do, Teddy? Manager Teddy, what would you do?
Well, I guess this goes into what formation do we want to end up playing, and it does give you the option to, maybe try something else out. As again, this whole entire season we haven't really created very much in terms of chances and goals. But if we're to stay with the same formation, right back's the tricky one, because left back you put Saiss in there. I mean, I guess Toddy Gomez could play right wing back, or Den Donker if we really need someone. Obviously don't love those, kind of shape into a back four and put Aiden Ori more the attacking left back. But yeah, I mean, there are no good options.
How about you, Paul?
I'm in that camp of changing the formation. I don't see it happening, but that's the only way I can really see anything working at the moment, would be to go to 4 and tell Johnny, just sit in, be the right back, defensively minded. Let's channel the attacks down the left-hand side, because it's not like we got another right back on the bench or even close. I don't think there's anyone in the 23s who'd be close, even in the mold of Toti Gomez and what he'd built up previously. The only other real squad members are out on loan who could potentially do it. So I think we're genuinely short of a more an attacking wing back to take that berth on the right hand side. So I would go 4 at the back and see how it goes. My only reservation there is it's definitely too many minutes that Johnny should be playing. So is there a centre back that could play on the right? I generally don't know. I hated that experiment last year when we saw Kilman as left back. So I don't want to see another square peg in a round hole on.
I mean,
on the wing,
Saiss did okay at left wing back, but yeah, I mean that one game with Kilman there was just a disaster. Paul, you've been really banging the drum as far as the last few games that if the defense is now giving up goals, you might as well go to the back four. Is that your stance now, and what should be the formation?
I'm increasingly leaning towards it, just because we've got this far into the season with the 5, and certainly definitely Saturday really magnified that there can be frailties, whether that's players out of form, bad day at the office. I don't know. It's a tricky thing to throw the baby out the bathwater with such a successful season to this point, and were we on about a different formation after 3 defeats on the spin at the start of the season? So not really. So I would be, if all the pieces were together, I would probably still be in favour of maintaining the 5, but switching, adding an extra body in the midfield, either Den Dunker or Kundal, and going for the 2 up top. This right back issue, depending on the prognosis of Hoever, depending on how many minutes Johnny can handle as we close out the season, that's the biggest deal for me, and that would be the real kicker in terms of if a switching the formations even considered.
What about you, Teddy?
Yeah, I think playing with 2 up top is interesting. I think the few times they've done it so far is with Podence up there, and he's, I mean, still a few. I like someone a little bigger who can hold up play, even with 2 up top. So I think that could be interesting. But I mean, either way, at right back, you still don't have anyone to play there, even with the 4 at the back, and doesn't make it any better.
Cody can do it, hankering back to our championship days of mid-table obscurity. He filled in there a few times, so
yeah, he'd have to be the slowest right back by a good margin in the Prem.
Scraping the barrel here for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
against Sar from Watford, I think that would be a perfect solution. Jeez. Kilman has been, I think, the player of the year this year for Wolves. Just spectacular. Had a rough couple of games, though. He did give up the penalty against Crystal Palace. Didn't have his best game. Do you think he'll get a break in this next game?
I'd be inclined to potentially give him the benefit of the doubt and let him try and ride it out. I think as a still young pro, fledgling in terms of top flight experience still, he's got to have these ups and downs. He's got to realize how he's going to come out of it. And I think he's still got enough credit in the bank this season that he could still hang on to the shirt. So I'm in favour of him in keeping it. Again, it's a lot to start making these sweeping changes in terms of, well, Kilman had a bad game. Seiss didn't cover himself with glory. What we're going to do? Switch them both out, and Bolly comes in and Toti Gomez. I think that's still too much disruption for, again, what could be a blip. Hopefully, I think that's what we all hope for. And can we steady the ship and get back to winning ways and put all this behind us? So I could see a few tweaks to the formation, but personally, I hope that Kilman still gets to continue.
And Lage came out and said he doesn't think what's going on in Ukraine is affecting Max Kilman, but he does have family there, so it's hard to just say it's not bothering him at all.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he has family in Kiev, and I think his dad died last year, so it's definitely must be a difficult time for him. And I wouldn't mind changing him out for Bali just to see what Big Willie still has, because he was immense for us the first 3 seasons, and yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, Hoover's complaining about not getting game time. Bali hasn't gotten any since the preseason.
He literally hasn't played a game all
chewing his gum. Yeah, sitting on the bench chewing his gum. Doesn't seem to be making a stink about it. So, well, I guess if you're still getting paid. One thing that worried me against Crystal Palace was how Podence just really got bullied. Really bullied. And that kind of happened the week before as well. Paul, do you think people are now kind of figuring out you just need to hit him as soon as he gets the ball?
There's a little element to that for sure, I think, and he's got to be cognizant of that, I think, and he's got to make tweaks to his performances accordingly, because that was definitely a case of one of his off games, and it seems like 3 on, maybe 2 on, 1 off, and really when it is an off game, it's really magnified because the ball doesn't stick, it comes back quicker, there's no retention of it, the flicks coming off, or the basic passes that don't get to their intended target, it just looks really bad. That was one of them for sure on Saturday. Adding to the fact that Wang barely had a sniff at all, was rarely a threat or a presence. It felt like we were playing with 9 men at sometimes. So I think how Podence is used, how he's utilised, definitely varies by formation and the players that he's playing alongside with. I was staggered even right at the kickoff. I was really excited with the lineup and seeing Wang start, Neto and Podence. I thought, okay, Wang's going to go central. He's going to be the pinnacle, and those two are going to be in and around him and switching and a real handful. And that didn't happen. And then all of a sudden I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, Podence is pretty central. Wang's on the left. Is he in a false 9? And he was. And it was just like, I couldn't understand how the decision making behind that. If anything, it should have been Wang centrally, even Neto closer by him, and stick Podence in the hole and see what damage you could cause that way. I think if you are going to give him, if teams are figuring him out, that you get close and you try and dominate him that way, you don't give him any time on the ball, you immediately get in there. play him as the 10, just give him a free roll and say, kid, just pop up where you want and do what you want to do. Then there's a real dynamic. Does the defender pick him up? Does the midfielder have to come back? That's where he could do the damage between the lines. So that leans a little bit towards that tweaking formation where you've got two more central forwards and him in behind. I think that could be some cause some trouble.
I'll say in defense for him, it was a very poor game. I guess we didn't have the extra man in midfield. It definitely could have helped against the Kaiute. It's really, they got some really big players in center mid. Connor Gallagher never stops working. He's a good player, but I think that's where the wing backs kind of issue became magnified. Like OSC put in kind of doing 1-2s with Semedo or pinging it out wide to Nuri, and those wing backs did very little attacking. I mean, Marçal had a few good positions, but we all know how his crossing is. It's just, if you look forward, there's Huang kind of trying to run through the lines, but you got basically three defenders covering him, and Neto, on the right wing, who, I'm not gonna be honest, he is my favorite player, but he was, just kind of, he's coming back.
He's coming
there
back.
were many 1-on-1s. Mitchell won every single battle against him, and I was like, that definitely doesn't look like the player I remember. So
again, that felt a little out of position as well. Him on the right, and again, when you're bringing these players back and you're gradually introducing them, I'd have bet he'd much prefer to be on the left and more natural position, and again, just concentrate on your natural game and get back into it, rather than the different dynamic that comes from playing on the opposite side and looking to think a little differently with how you're going to try and take your man on and beat him. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but the way Wang performed, he'd have been out and Neto would have got the start down the left for me.
Raul has to come back into the starting 11, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. Paul, I mean,
as a fulcrum as that, even on a bad day, at least we get some respite. It sticks a little. Saturday it was just until he came on, it never even really posed a threat or had the platform to try and build anything when the ball went forward, because it just wasn't happening.
I think people have been frustrated because Raul hasn't been scoring as many goals, but so many people forget all the dirty work he does there. I mean, he's a great at holding up play. He's a great target. I mean, it's sometimes you need those guys that are just gonna get down and dirty, and I feel like that's what he does really well.
I think I'd say it just out of everyone, it adds a threat of a goal. And when we're just on about the opportunities that the wing backs get for creativity, I'd still much rather have him in and around the box, that if it does, by way of a miracle, come from a Marcel cross that isn't spooned out for a throw-in or whatever, at least he's there trying to get his head on the end of it and do something with it. I think we've got a big problem at the moment that we've got no genuine creativity down the side of the pitch to ultimately put a cross in and have someone come in on the end of it. Our play always seems to be to craft that perfect goal that gets someone narrow to the byline and cuts it back for someone to be waiting between the 6-yard box and the 12-yard line for a tap in that way. We're trying to craft this perfect goal, but it's just not working, and we've got no plan B to try and do something a little different and get a ball in from far away outside towards the corner flag to whip across and get someone attacking it. I think they've really got to figure out how we're going to attack teams better, because it's fundamentally it's not working.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. I feel like, on the counterattack, that's the difference. We score a lot of our goals, but when we're trying to break a defense down, when we were 2-0 down, you're right. It's like every goal has to be a perfectly constructed, like 6 passes, across, inside the box. down the byline, cross it in the middle, and it just hasn't worked. I know. Remember one of the coaches tweeted out like a video, kind of that one time it did work. Everyone's like, "Oh, that looks so great," but I feel like they're trying to do that every time, and then, if you watch other games the weekend, not every goal you score is perfect. Sometimes just, it is a little bit sloppy. So yeah, we need to. Yeah, I think the attacking play needs to change a little bit. I don't know how that happens, or be a coach, but yeah, there has to be some new movements or new introduction, because it hasn't worked all season. I think the last time I was on, I asked if you guys thought we'd get over a goal per game, and you guys all said yes, and I honestly don't think we will. Like, it's
No.
Yeah. And Wolves rated is still waiting for his first Fabio Silva goal as well. So we really have put the hex on the team this year.
Oh, poor Fabio.
Sheesh.
I hope Fabio wasn't one of the ones Lage was talking about, because I do feel like Fabio, when he gets in the game, man, that dude hustles his butt off. All right, guys, it's a double game week this week. We got Watford at home on Thursday. They're always kind of tricky for us. And then on Sunday, we're on the road in Everton, who just got smashed 5-0 to Tottenham, which could be a good or a bad thing. I'm trying to decide. By God, this is better be a get better week for us, right?
I think if this season, again, I keep on thinking that the next game is going to be the most telling for our season. And I'm going to say again, repeat myself, probably these two games as a collective will be, because if we get probably less than 3 points, it's just going to be a highlight of really where we are, which is mid-table mediocrity this season, and probably we're overachieving in the position that we are currently, and we're going to ride out the rest of the season, and it's going to go up and down, and we're going to finish about 10th or 12th, and it's going to even itself out. Win these next two games, what blip, we're back on it and can carry on. So I think it is going to be telling, and I would say 4 points minimum to right the ship and put it back on course. Anything less, I think we've got to be accepting of where this season's going to go.
Yeah, I think Paul has a good point there. I mean, if you do look at the expected data, we're right around 13th place. I think the squad's definitely overachieved this year. At the beginning, we were all hoping we're getting a relegation battle. So the fact we're in 8th right now, a small miracle, but yeah, I'm not confident about these next two games. Watford, both teams fighting for their lives. Watford, attacking wise, actually look pretty good against Arsenal, so a little nervous about that. But I feel like in the Everton game, if they can start early, as it is away, I feel like the Everton fans, a few times I've watched them, they can turn on their team really fast. And yeah, I was just taking a look at the standings. I mean, they're in 17th place right now. Obviously, two more games than some of the other teams, but yeah, if they like an early goal could put them in a massive hole. So I would be
that's huge for Sunday.
Need to get out of the gates for sure.
Got to go out there and be on the front foot from the get go, because I would probably be of the belief that 1 goal early against them is going to probably bring 2. So
yeah, they did look really good against Manchester City, all things considered. So, yeah.
Yeah, and especially with Leeds the week after at home, I feel like obviously you'd like to get 9 points. I feel like that should be the expectation that Lage has for the team, get 9 points. I feel like we have to get at least 7, though, right? Would you consider 7 points over the next 3 games good?
I would do. I think it's funny that it's at the moment I'm more excited, or not excited, less fearful of when we play away. So to have 2 of these games at home, I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen? Is it just going to be a repeat against Palace, against 2 teams that are below us in the table that we're expected to beat? So the Everton one probably be more open, that we the openness of that game should complement us a little bit more when we have to be on the front foot on Thursday, and then when Leeds come into town. That's what I'm not real confident with at the moment.
Call me crazy. I think we're going to finish in 8th this year. I do. I mean, look, they're 5 points clear. There's only 11 games left in the year. So I know I saw one person, Andrew Smith, say 15th. Like, come on now. No, that's not going to happen. And I mean, look at the teams behind us. Okay, Southampton, they've been solid. Crystal Palace, I mean, if they played us every game, they'd be in Champions League.
Say, after watching that game, I don't know how they're in 10th. They looked really good.
Yeah. No, they have. I just think they're more of a matchup team.
Yeah.
Leicester.
I could see it, and that would be a perfect summary of the season and being a huge missed opportunity, because if we do finish in 8th, it's probably going to come down to a point or 3 if it happens like that, and we're going to be kicking ourselves at, why didn't we beat Burnley at home, or we didn't get any points from playing Palace in 2 games. It's not going to come down to the defeat against Man City away. It's going to come down to stuff that was in our own hands, and that we should have had a better handle on taking care of our own business. So it would be typical Wolves if we finished 8th and let some type of European adventure slip from our grasp because it was our fault.
And I mean, we still have a game in hand on West Ham. We win Thursday. We're only 2 points behind. I mean, it's not crazy. I don't know. I think I have faith in Bruno that he's going to kind of right the ship here. And it's not like the teams behind us are super consistent and on fire. I mean, honestly, the one you could say is playing the best is Newcastle, but they put themselves in such a hole that they're struggling, or Crystal Palace. But yeah, I still think 8th. Teddy, what do you think? You looked at me like I was crazy when I said 8th.
Yeah, I did, and then I again looked at the teams below us. I think Southampton, up until their 4-0 shellac, and I think they had gone 10 games or 9 games unbeaten or something. So they could be, and I think Leicester will. I mean, they still got 2 games on us. I think they'll turn it on now that Vardy's fit.
Wolves only have.
I'll say 9th.
I'll say 9th. Wolves only have 3 games against teams that are in the top.
Yeah, I was
6.
gonna say the fixtures this next run is super easy. Like, you couldn't ask for anything more. And to be fair, this season they have taken care of business for the most part, I feel like, against those lower tier teams. So we'll see. We'll see.
Now, if they lose both of these games, I'm definitely going to blame it on the whiskey I'm drinking right now as my prediction of 8th. But Paul, Teddy says 9th. I say 8th. What do you say? 10th?
I'll be in the 8th camp and let down by. They'll let us down. So.
Oh, there you go, Paul. I see on you. I can inject some positivity.
Little positive negativity, and never did anyone any harm. So.
Yeah. Well, the first game Thursday is going to be against Watford. Teddy, what's your predicted lineup? You notice I put the pressure on you first.
Yeah. I think we'll go Sa. Hopefully, Nouri's fit. Saiss, Cody. I want to maybe Toddy in for Kilman just for a game. And then we're gonna put. We'll start with Johnny, and then come the 65th minute. I don't know who's coming in. Maybe. Yeah, I got no idea what's happening after that. But I think Den Donker will play in midfield. I think they'll do the three with Neves and Moutinho, and then probably Raul and Neto up top would be my guess.
Okay, Paul.
I think similar formation wise to begin with, the swap that I'm making at the back, I think Saiss is probably more liable to get dropped for Gomez than Kilman is. So I would say that maybe Totti comes in for him. The only reservation there would be if our attacking intent is going to come down a flank, it's going to be the left one. So if Nouri's in there, has he got the defensive stability behind him in order to cover that attacking intent? So that's where I've got some question marks over. I probably would be 3 in midfield. It's tricky. Depends how they line up and what their potential is. I'd really like to see a midfield 3 of Kundal, Neves, and Moutinho, and just see if they can play that way and get some creativity through the middle. I don't see it happening, but it's something that I'd like. Podence, I'd be probably inclined to take him out if that was the case and we played 3 in the midfield. I want to see at least some attacking threat up front, and I would go Wang and Raul as more 2 central attacking forwards.
Yeah, we saw that early on, a good connection with Raul and Huang, and then Huang got hurt, so we haven't necessarily seen that. I still like the way Huang hustles, but he definitely needs Raul to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about Kundal and Moutinho because I don't know if we'd win an aerial duel in the entire game. But Watford might be the team where you can try it out. So you're still going with the back 5, huh, Paul? Not the back 4.
There's too much. Again, there's still too much football to be played in order to start experimenting, and I think he's going to ride it out. And is it the end of this month or the start of April when it's the playoffs for the World Cup qualifiers when there's an international break? So what better time than to experiment when you've got that extended period between games? That could be time on the training ground spent trying to hone it. So I probably don't see that formation change just yet.
Normally, I would agree with you on the playoffs, Paul, but remember, Portugal's in the playoffs.
Yeah, takes off the team out, but yeah, defensively, I think we haven't got too much disruption, especially with Semedo being out. I wonder if Sarr will get a call up or at least be in the squad. That could be the only missing piece during that time.
So let's hear predictions for Watford first. Paul, no, let you go.
I'm going to say 1 each.
Ooh,
not very inspiring.
Okay. How about you, Teddy?
I was thinking 1 each, but I'll take a step further and go 2 each.
I am gonna go 0-0.
Definitely a draw, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Okay, Everton. Obviously, it's way too early to predict lineups there because we don't know how these other ones are gonna go. So, Paul, what do you think in Everton?
Hear me out. This gets crazy.
Oh boy.
Saturday, I was looking at the results. I was thinking, how can Brentford score 4 and how can Villa score 4 and then tonight Everton get spanked? And it's like, why doesn't the Wolves ever score multiple goals anymore? Why aren't we ever considered one of these teams that are even a threat to go more than 1 or 2? So I'm going to totally predict that scenario is going to happen where we manage to get that early goal, we get a second, and then we go on and win at a canter, and we got to win 4-1. Where the hell does that come from? I don't know. I sound crazy.
I'm the one drinking whiskey, Paul, not you.
Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason for that prediction whatsoever. So
4-1. Wow.
Let's see.
Teddy, you got 4-1 too?
I'll stay more within the boundaries of a 2, which even a 2 is a lot. So I'll take a 2-1 for Wolves there.
I'm gonna go 2-1 as well. I think that's pretty interesting. Pretty fair. All right, guys, there are no stupid questions this week, so I'm gonna pose a question to you instead. So it came out in Birmingham Live, very interesting story, that Wolves could be in for a squad reshuffle this summer, and not just because they want to bring in Bruno's players, but because they're going to have 17 registered players from overseas. So let's look at these overseas players who we got. We got Semedo. We have Bali, Saiz. Tony Gomez, I don't think counts because he's too young. So Marsal, Johnny, Neves, Moutinho, Dendonker, Raul, Trincao, and Neto are going to count because of the fact that they're turning 22. And Podence, Chan, and Chiquinho. So I'm going to go through some of these guys, and you tell me if you want them to stay or go. Okay.
Just real fast, I think Toddy Gomez is 23.
Is he 23? Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess he does count. Yeah. Okay, so the ones that aren't going to count are Mosquera, Hoover, Aitnery, Kundal, and Silva, which Kundal would count for homegrown as well anyways. So, and what's interesting here is, people have talked about, well, maybe they get rid of Hoover. We've even brought up maybe you sell Kilman. They may not be able to. This is the homegrown rule. So, gonna bring up a few guys. Trincao, we'll start with that. That seems like a pretty good one. We buying him, Teddy, or sending him back?
I think we all know what the answer is, but I honestly think it's just could be a Mendes, deal here where they get Adama and we get Trincao and 10 million. I don't know. You're right. It doesn't seem like Bruno is particularly happy. He's literally a forward player with 0 goals and 0 assists this season. Normally, I would say, or always, I would say no, but this one just feels special. And yeah, I almost feel like we could be stuck with Trincao. So I'm going to say no, but that's not a confident no.
Okay. Paul, is he staying or going?
I've got a feeling it's somehow tied up in the Traore deal, and on paper that it would be a hard no as it stands. But I think it will be a stay, and we're just hoping for a miracle that there's some kind of full pre-season and he's a different player come the start of next year. But it's not something that you're filled with confidence about whatsoever.
Okay, what about Saiz? Saiz is out of contract in the summer. So do you re-sign him and have him take up one of those overseas spots, or let him go? Teddy. Teddy had that look of like the kid in math class that doesn't know the answer and is like, please God, don't let the teacher call
I want to save that one to the end and see what I end up with before choosing, because I'm really on the fence. I think he'd be great to stay, but yeah, he's had a great season. But I'll say no for now.
Paul?
I'll give you both. I'm saying Saiss and Marcel have gone.
Marcel was going to be my next one.
Yeah,
they're
definitely
both
gone.
We like to do that type of business early or early-ish. So if there was any extensions or anything like that, I think we'd have seen it by now. And even to the extent of Saiss, I think he's still only here based on that it was an option in the club's favour for an extra year anyway, that he kind of earned by default. So I think age, players available potentially to come through and challenge, stacks up for both him and Marcel saying farewell. And they probably, Saiss has definitely got one more decent move in him to probably a team playing in Europe where he can go on a free and command a decent wage for a season or two. So I think he'll take the money and run.
Here's another hard one for you. Moutinho, you re-sign him and have him take up one of those 17 spots?
If he's signing with some type of coach's clause, then yeah, we keep him. If not, I think it's a very hard ask to have him take up one of those positions. Another year older, more miles on the clock. It's not like he's been relaxing and turning down the minutes in these twilight years. He's probably been playing more than ever. So I love him to bits, but I think we got to think long term as far as Moutinho is concerned.
Yeah, I think he's gone after this year.
Interesting. I think he stays. I think as long as Bruno's here, he stays. Willie Bally. Now, keep in mind, you guys both said Saiss would be gone. So does that mean you get rid of Willie Bally and then you're left with Cody Killman, Tony Gomez, and Mosquera?
I think he's gone, and it's gonna talk to the overall of the club that it's the evolution, and I think we all realise the opportunity where we've got for improvement is the back line. So if he goes, frees up a space, save on the wages, that's 3 players potentially out of the way that we can invest and get someone in who's possibly more suited to the 4 at the back, or brings a slightly different skill set at centre half that we can complement. But I think, again, age-wise, lack of minutes this year, contract dwindling down, I think we all wave bye to Big Willie.
Yeah, when's his contract up? Is it up at this year or next?
End of next, this year. I think. Yeah, end of next, I think.
Pretty tough to unload him for any value considering.
I was gonna say, what do you think you could get? You think £5 million?
Oh, no. Way less.
Yeah,
probably 2.
Yeah,
2, 3.
I mean, he needs to play. You know, if they're to get any value, he needs to play at least a little bit these next 10 games. So
I'm gonna look up transfer market. Hold on, you guys, don't look it up. Don't look it up.
I was on the website just now.
All right. This thing is so ridiculous. Okay. Paul, I will set the over under at $5 million. So pounds wise, what would that be? Pounds to dollars. I have to use my great. Let's see.
3 and a bit million. 3.5.
Okay, so I'll set it at £5 million over under.
Under.
It's a close one.
I'm going to tell you what it is, Paul. He's valued at £6.71 million.
Okay.
I'd take that in a second.
Yeah. What is he? 31?
Yep.
Yep. Catrone, he's gone. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've actually been looking at Empoli, just just checking their scores every now and then. Yeah, he started the first 10, 15 matches. I think he scored 2 goals, and one of them was like the luckiest goal you've ever seen in your life. You guys should look it up if you haven't seen it. It's hilarious. And yeah, now he's just sitting on the bench for a team I think that got promoted this year. It was mid-table, doing pretty well, but yeah, he's He's just gonna toil around in Italy for a while. Hopefully for him can find his scoring boots, but doesn't look like we have anything there.
No. Jordao, you sell, you loan
As a
again.
keep for.
That's a keep. Do you loan him out?
I think it depends how he does at Grasshoppers for the rest of the year, but I mean, seems to be doing okay from what I understand this year. So.
Paul?
On the fence with this one, I think he's got age on his side, but personally, I haven't seen enough of him to see, well, if you take Moutinho Dendoncker out, could he come in and generally warrant a starting berth? I'm probably likely to say no. So if that frees up a space, if we are able to recoup something for him, I'm not sure. He's obviously not kicked on like Neto did, and that was the same deal effectively. So where does he fit moving forward? So,
and last but not least, Morgan Gibbs White. Do they keep him and use him as a homegrown guy, or do they sell him? Because I'm betting, if you haven't noticed, Sheffield is now up to 7th in the championship standings. Could make the playoff. Got to imagine if they got promoted, they'd want him, right? Do you keep him or sell him, Paul?
I think they could have happened upon the perfect storm if that's the case, that if he does go up with them, there would be such a clamour for him to stay and be that pinnacle of their team in the Prem that they do all that they can to try and keep him, which could add 3 or 5 million on his valuation. So I think they're gonna. I think the loan move has done well for him this season. I think if he, even if they didn't go up, there could be a hefty bid in from them to keep you on a permanent basis, and it would possibly be one that the club's likely to accept.
Teddy?
You know what? I think we do keep him, and I think he does very well next season. Feeling, yeah, that's my optimistic streak today. Like he's been crushing it at Sheffield. You know, all the things that we know he can do at the championship level. You know, there's tons of players like Harvey Barnes or Harry Maguire. There's so many people who just need a loan to be playing all the time. He's been doing great. All the Sheffield fans love him, I think.
Oh, they love him. Yeah.
I honestly think he could do well next season. So I want to keep him.
Paul, his value on transfer market, over under 10 million pounds.
Over.
Teddy?
I think it's under. They always are slow to make changes on it.
It is under. It is 7.54 million pounds. There is no way in hell I would sell that dude for 7.54. So, interesting little, game we played there. I think what it definitely points to is there will be a lot of movement this summer. I think for the lack of movement that we've had over the last year, they're going to have to kind of shuffle some things around. And I mean, I think Saiss, Marsal could definitely be gone. We still don't know about Trincao or Moutinho. So we should see a lot of differences. And that 17 player limit for overseas players, I think, is going to play a big factor in it. All right, Teddy, one final reminder for listeners on how to connect with you.
Yeah, of course, at Teddy Ely on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And then I'm usually at the Lion and Eagle pub on weekends. It's kind of tough for me to make weekday matches, but yeah, you can find me there. Hopefully, Alex, when he's down next couple weeks from now, we can meet up and watch a game. So yeah, always around.
You guys have to take a photo from there so we can post. Hopefully there's not the height discrepancy that there is between me and Paul.
I don't know what you're working with there, Teddy, but I'm not very tall, so there's a good chance this is the case.
No, I'm pretty average. So
yeah, I mean, it honestly looks like I am Podence and he is Max Kilman, and it's not like I'm not that short, but you would think I am tiny from those photos of me standing beside Paul.
So that brings this week's show to an end. So please continue to do what you can in terms of liking, subscribing and reviewing a whole lot of Wolves on the podcast platform you find you're listening to us on right now. Between games, we're most active on Twitter. We do a live halftime space on Twitter for those weekend games. Well, all apart from Saturdays where I scheduled one and there was just no words to even mention on Saturday, so I cancelled it.
Thank God you canceled that. I was like, oh, I am dreading this halftime.
I made myself the biggest glass of Guinness cold brew iced coffee I could find and thought that would ease the pain, and it didn't really. So we're also on Facebook or email hello@wholelotofwolves.com if you want to get in touch for any no stupid questions or anything related to the show. We have Alex on board now with producing. We've got Ron Firth in Canada who helps us with our social media. But if you also want to get involved and join the Whole Lot of Wolves crew behind the scenes to help create additional content or come on in a guest spot, then do use that email or direct message to get in touch. We will be back at the start of next week again to review those two games and then preview that visit of Leeds United during spring break on the Friday. So until then, up the Wolves.